Hi, I just wanted to give just a really fast, high-level walkthrough on how to change your gear oil. If you have I believe it's the ZT-2100 or the ZT-2200 transmission on your Toro zero-turn lawnmower. Since I've already got it all pieced together, obviously I'm not going to take it all apart to show you again. I've already got mine done, but some folks thought that this might be helpful. So the first step is going to be fairly simple. Here's the transmissions for one. There's one on this side, one on the other side. They basically mirror each other for all intents and purposes. First thing you're going to want to do is remove this bolt and this bolt. So you're going to have a wrench on the back side, like a box wrench. I believe it's a 5/8, maybe a 16 millimeter. But mostly all the wrenches you'll need is a 1/2 inch, 9/16, and a 5/8. And then possibly the 16 millimeter. I think I ended up using the 16 millimeter on one that's just right up here. I don't know if we can see it very good with the camera with some of the stuff already back in place, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But anyway, so if you remove these two, you got to do it on this side, do it on the other side. There's this plate will then come down. So that plate kind of keeps the two together. I think it's also kind of a guard to kind of protect the belt. Like if you look up in there, that's where your PTO is, you know, so obviously you can see your belts there and your drive belts up there, etc. So the first thing you want to do is pull that plate and then go underneath, take a look, see if you can see how well you can see. But you're going to want to look at your drive belt pattern. It's a little bit confusing. You're going to want to take a couple good pictures. You're going to want to jack it up as high as you can. Right now I've just got on jack stands. I ended up doing the whole thing this way. I do have I got a hoist right there. That's where I do a lot of my work. I just hook it up and raise it. But in this particular case, for whatever reason, I decided to just use the jack and jack stands for it. But anyway, so once you have your drive belt configuration and you've got it, good pictures, maybe draw it out, make it really clear, because that's going to be the trickiest part when this is done. So as you can see here, this is, you know, you can see some of the information on what model you have. I believe you can look up based on the numbers here what model you have if you're unsure. But otherwise, if you look up in your Toro manual, it'll probably tell you. So anyway, so you get these bolts off, get the plate off, get a good look, get some pictures, etc. of drive bolt pattern. After that, you're basically ready to start pulling these down. You're going to want to maybe take a jack or some blocks of wood or whatever it might be, put them underneath here, so that way when you start taking things off, you'll have the ability, you know, it'll basically give you some relief, right? So the first thing you're going to want to do is remove these guys. I suggest only doing one side at a time, so that way you can look at the other one to figure out how it all goes back together. One of the things that I wanted to be conscious of is figure out which side the washer goes on everything, right? So when you take it all apart, you're gonna, you know, that will probably be one of the biggest questions. So like in here, the washer goes on the top, right? On the bolt head side, not on the nut side. But then here, right, you've got the nut and then the washer. On the head side, there's no washer. And so if you go here, this one here, and the downside here, there is no washer, but the one on the other side, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's a washer on the top side. And this is the trickiest bolt. So this one, you just gotta get a 1/2 inch wrench. You can wedge it in here, like the bolt's right here. You'll be able to put a wrench, a 1/2 inch wrench, box wrench in here to hold it, and then use, you know, a ratchet or an impact gun or whatever you're gonna use to screw it out and get it out. No problem, okay? But first, you're gonna wanna remove this. Then you're gonna wanna remove probably this one, and then there's one more. You can see it right there. That's the one where I think I used I want to say I used a 16 millimeter like box end wrench, and on the back side I used a ratchet. I think it was a 5/8. I think the issue was, I think it is technically 5/8 on both sides. I think the issue is on one side, I don't remember if it's this side or the other side, it's really tight right there, and I couldn't even get the wrench on there. So then worst case is you can just take an open end wrench and come in from the top here. So you just come on down, hook it on there, and then unscrew it. So that's basically all you have to do is take all those off, and then last, I would probably then work on these. You just got the two, I believe these are 1/2 inch or 9/16, but I think they're 1/2 inch. And I think these ones are 1/2 inch. So these could be 9/16, but I'm pretty sure these were 1/2 inch, and these are probably 1/2 inch too. But anyway, so then take these two off, and then it'll come down. But make sure at some point, once you get this loose, push this out of the way. You don't want any weight hanging on this and possibly bend this bar. But actually, before I get too far, actually before you even get that far, there's one other thing you gotta do, or actually two other things you gotta do. There's this little linkage right here. I believe this is the parking brake, essentially, but you're gonna wanna pull the pin out, take the washer off, drop the linkage, and then, you know, put the washer in the cotter pin back in the bolt head so that you don't lose it. So anyway, so I'd actually maybe do that first. And then you gotta do the same thing here. This is your neutral. Take the pin and the washer out here, do all that, then take this off, you know, then do these end pieces, do the one up here, then take these off. That'll be the easiest way. So once you drop the transmission at that point, again, you're gonna have something holding it so that it doesn't fall, so that it doesn't put any stress on anything. Once you get it down, pull it out. On the top, you're gonna see like a plug or a hole or whatever for a 1/4 inch Allen wrench, you know, a hex bolt, if you will, or excuse me, whatever you want to call it. But use an Allen wrench, put it in there, unscrew it, take it out, dump it into your oil bin, your oil catch pan, your oil bucket, whatever it might be. Just let it sit and drain. Let it sit for an hour, maybe 2 hours. There's a lot of residual in there that'll take a long time. I let mine sit for an hour and a half, and I think I probably still didn't even get it all out. Once that's done, then you can flip it back, and then you're gonna fill it back up. I just ended up going to my Toro dealer to get the hydrostatic oil. There are different options that you can use. The manual says you can use a 20W50, I believe it is, as long as it's SL rated or better, which almost every modern oil is. You can look at the different oil ratings that are out there, but most will be like an SP or something like that, which is just about any 20W50 is going to work. But I read an article that talks about the different detergents that are in the motor oil versus what's in here, and long story short, it's better to just stick with hydrostatic oil. It doesn't have to be a Toro brand. There's other manufacturers out there. You can get Stens or different things like that. I believe Amazon sells Stens in another brand. I'm sure they're all pretty good. So anyway, so when you fill it, you're gonna wanna use a pretty small funnel. I'm using, I think I just got this at O'Reilly's or whatever. I've had this for a number of years, but this quick fill funnel by Flow Tool, but just anything with a smaller opening there, because it's a pretty small hole that you're gonna be working with. So anyway, so once you start filling it, it's going to tell you that it'll take, I believe, 56 ounces. It'll tell you something like 53 to 56 ounces. Mine did not take even 53. I was measuring mine. I was actually using a Pyrex measuring cup to measure it out, and I didn't even come close to that, which again tells me that there was probably some residual in there that I couldn't get out. But the reality is once I overfilled it, this was my best friend. This is like a little Motrin. I know this is hard to focus here. Infant's Motrin syringe. I've got a couple of these. This one is really skinny. So, and as you can see, I still have a little bit of fluid left in the tip there. But I was able to reach in there and suction a bunch of it out. So once it's in there, tighten the cap back up, reverse the order, put it all back together. This is one of the last things you're gonna wanna do. But basically, put it up there, probably support it with some 2x4s or whatever you need to do. Put these guys in, put the ends in, put the top in. In fact, I think I did these two. I just set them in there and just barely started the bottom. And then I believe I did the top one up here, and then I did this one, and then I did this one. But when I did it, in fact, and this is probably really important, don't tighten any of them. Just get them close, not just a 1/4 turn or 1/2 turn away from snug, right? So that everything has a little bit of shift to it, and afterwards you can put this on, reconnect the linkage here, reconnect the linkage for the brake or whatever this is here, and then go do your other one. And then when you're done, do the same thing, get them all loose. Once everything is in place and you've got this plate back on, which is the last thing you're gonna do once you have them both reinstalled, then tighten everything down. Now, in addition to that, here's kind of the big caveat. When you go to put them all back together, the drive belt's gonna be the most difficult thing. If you haven't done your drive belt in a long time, now's a good time to do your drive belt. Don't tighten anything until you have your drive belt done. So you're gonna go up there and you're gonna try to route things around on both of them. It's better to have these to be a little bit loose. Once you have it in there, you know, where everything's just kind of in there, you can remove the 2x4s and just allow this to have some wiggle. Put the drive belt on, and it's gonna be a little bit of a pain in the ass. To do the drive belt, you're gonna wanna have a pipe wrench or something that enables you. I don't know if we're gonna get a good view here. When you undo that bolt right there, you're gonna take it off. The PTO kind of can potentially come down in one big piece, or it may have just the bottom piece will slide off, just where it's just the drive for the actual mower blades. But then the big drive pulley may or may not come down with it. The drive pulley can come down. If it does, once you take it down, separate the two. Mine was kind of stuck together. Separate the two, put it back up there, get your belts routed, then put the PTO piece back on. Because if you try to do it with that pulley in place, you're gonna have a really hard time. But in order to do that, on the other side of this, there's a wire that's clipped to that. You're gonna wanna unclip that first. Then you're gonna wanna maybe put like a big pipe wrench or something on the shaft above it, and then loosen that nut. If you have a impact gun, you might be able to break it free without it. I was not, even though I've got a 1/2-inch impact gun that it's got like 1,600 foot-pounds of breakaway torque. It just would spin the whole thing, right? Which is not what you want. So put the wrench on there if you need to keep it steady, pop it loose, and away you go. If you put a big pipe wrench on there, then you can still just use a socket, however you want to do it. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, again, you're gonna have a wire that's attached to it, comes in the front here. There's a little clip. So from this side here, like if you're looking at it from the back, you'll reach in with a flat blade screwdriver, put it in there, lift it up, and then push, and that wire clip will come off, and then you can loosen it and take it down. Now, the one thing that you want to pay attention to here, not a big deal, hopefully it'll be obvious, but this little plate right here, when you put this back on, you're gonna wanna make sure that you line it so that you can't quite see here, I don't think. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but this has another thing on the other side. There's like a little rubber grommet here. It's like two little fingers that will slip up over this, okay? So when you put it back on, you wanna make sure you're lined up so that it can go in here, but then also this is keyed. I don't know if we can see it here, but both of these are keyed so that it can only go in a certain way. So you might have to turn and manipulate things so that this will slide up into here. But again, when I did this, I replaced my drive belt, so that's a brand new drive belt, brand new, blade, mower belt or whatever. All that stuff is new, because I figured if I do this now, I don't want to have to take any of this apart again for a couple years. The cap or the plug to fill these is just right on top, probably right over here a little bit on each side. It's not the plug that has like a breather tube that comes out the top. Some people open that up to try to do it. That's not the way to do it. There's an actual plug. Again, takes an Allen key, turn it, and away you go. So that's about it. Again, this is the hardest part, getting this back on. But if you can't do this, you wouldn't be able to replace the belts on your own anyway. So hopefully anyone that attempts this will be able to get it done. Make sure you have somebody that's somewhat mechanically inclined to help you if you're not super mechanically inclined. But this isn't really that hard if you've done any auto repair or mower repair or whatever of yourself. Again, the biggest thing is just take your time. Be sure not to contaminate inside of these. So when you take the cap off, fill it up, plug it back up. Don't give it a chance to get contaminated. Now, once this is done, the last thing you'll need to do is you put the wheels back on, you've tightened everything back up, everything's ready to go. Now you have to bleed the air out of the pumps. In order to do that, you will you'll turn off the you'll turn on the bypass, which is this little guy here that goes back, as you guys probably already know. You've got these little guys. You push those guys in so that you're in bypass mode. Start this thing up. Let it warm up for a minute, and then once you're ready, slide them forward, slide them back. You got to do that 5 or 6 times, nice and slow, maybe even 7 or 8 times. It doesn't hurt to do more. Once you do that, then turn the bypass back off, and then you're going to do it again. Obviously, when you do it again, now the mower is going to move back and forth. Do not turn the blades on or anything like that. Just work it out. When I did mine, when I did the air purge or the air bleeding from my transmissions, you know, when the bypass is on, you're not going to hear any noise coming from your transmissions. The reason why I did mine is my transmissions were already getting noisy. When you have the bypass on, you're not going to get any noise from the transmissions. As soon as you turn it on, I got noise the first time I went forward, first time I went back, and then I think when I went forward again, I no longer had any more noise. And then I did it a bunch more times and still didn't get any noise, so I'm pretty sure I'm in good shape. Now, caveat. I overfilled mine maybe just a tiny bit, or went kind of towards the upper brink, I should say, because once you go through this bleed process, it's going to drain just a little bit more. That says you're supposed to take it, you're supposed to go back in and check your level, which I'm going to talk about in a second too, and refill as necessary. I did not want to have to take all of this back down in order to refill it. That would be awful. So what I did is I just filled it up to the absolute brink, in which it says you're supposed to be somewhere between 3/4 of an inch from the top to 1.5 inches from the top. So in other words, you should have somewhere between 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches from the top of the plug, okay? Now, the manuals will tell you that as well. I'm gonna see if I got my little tool here, my measuring tool. I believe it's here. So what I did to simplify this, because it's very difficult to see in there because it's dark, as you can see, I got 3 lines. The first line, this is really hard to do with one hand, but bear with me. Okay, so this first line, that's 3/4 inch, that's 1 inch, and that's 1.5 inch. So basically what I was able to do is I wiped this really, really clean. I had a little bit of light. I went in there until I could see the oil get disturbed, right? As soon as you touch, it'll like kind of do like a little ripple effect. You'll be able to tell when you touch. And then I would check and see which lines I could see until I was at basically the 3/4 line. So at first, you know, this is what I would see. And then here, and then eventually when I got to 3/4, that's how I knew where I needed to be. So I'm really, really close to that line. And now I'm hoping that should be more than enough. I believe it will be. There's only so much air that could be inside those pumps. So I'm really, really hoping that's it. Hopefully you guys found this useful. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to help. Have a good day.